Good morning, Your Excellency, sponsors, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited to be here this morning for two reasons. First of all, to be in Berlin, which has significant historical importance to Africa's development or lack of it. It is very heartwarming to be in Berlin to speak at an event organized to seriously consider how Europe in general and Germany in particular can collaborate with Africa on technology and entrepreneurship. I believe that it's in Europe's economic and security interest to support economic development initiatives for Africa. The reality is that when Africans are supported to thrive economically at home, Europe will stop worrying about the influx of immigrants from Africa. Secondly, the theme of this conference, which is technology and entrepreneurship, is one in which millions of African youths have become passionately engaged in recent years as they seek to create economic opportunities for themselves, notwithstanding the constraining effects of poor infrastructure based on the rather poor performance of many governments across Africa. Many young Africans have become very actively engaged in Africa's tech ecosystem. The evolution of this can be traced to the fact that Africa has been able to leapfrog the telecoms industry, as His Excellency mentioned earlier in the day. Africa leverage on not just the technology, but what I call the pay-as-you-go business model. It was that business model that actually cracked telecom space for the GSM companies. The pay-as-you-go model basically solved two problems. It addressed the risk management issue for the telcos in the sense that you don't have to wait until the end of the month before you collect payment. The customer pays upfront. For the users, it ensures that the cash flow problem is addressed. So you buy recharge card in small quantities as your cash flow can accommodate. And that was what really helped the rapid uptake of GSM subscriptions. Today, as His Excellency mentioned, Africa is close to 80% GSM subscription rate, and internet subscription is actually close to 50% in some of the countries. Now, the tech and entrepreneurship ecosystem is growing rapidly, and there are indeed a number of bright spots, some of which have been mentioned by previous speakers. I crave your indulgence to highlight just a few examples. In Kenya, the tech ecosystem is known as the Silicon Savannah, and I can see a few people from Kenya here. I think the stories of M-Pesa is well reported. Today, M-Pesa covers about 50% of the GDP of Kenya. And there's also M-Copper, which is a SIM card-enabled home solar energy service. In Ghana and Nigeria, there is Metwater School of Entrepreneurship, School of Technology MEST, which provides training for African developers. A similar company, Andela, based in Lagos, recently received $25 million funding, as in Series B funding, in 2016 from a group led by Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. In Nigeria, the Lagos Angel Network, of which I'm a member, is actively engaged in promoting and developing the tech startup ecosystem. Co-Creation Hub, which has been the pioneer startup incubator in Nigeria, recently organized a pitch drive across Europe, and I believe they were actually here in Berlin last week, and they visited Microsoft. We launched a capital growth fund in partnership with CC Hub, that's the Co-Creation Hub, Omdia Network, which is owned by the founder of eBay, and the Bank of Industry, which is Nigeria's leading development bank. We launched a capital growth fund in 2016, which is also helping to support Nigerian entrepreneurs, Nigerian startups. Demo Africa, which was launched in Kenya in 2012 by USAID, Microsoft, and Lion Africa, is also helping startups connect to the American ecosystem. They hold annual demo days, which has held so far in Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. Perhaps the biggest entrepreneurship program on the African continent today is the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program, TEP, which is a $100 million program launched in 2015 by the Tony Elumelu Foundation to provide $10,000 in seed capital to up to 1,000 startups every year for 10 consecutive years. The program is currently in its third year. Europe is also making inroads into Africa. There's a Swiss company known as SeedStars, which has been organizing startup competitions in many countries with a grand finale that holds in Switzerland on a yearly basis. Right here in Germany, Green Tech Capital, one of the sponsors of this conference, and a long-term impact investor, has taken the lead in empowering African startups to build impactful businesses and in connecting them with German investors. So far, Green Tech has invested in 11 startups across 5 countries, and including one of our joint investee companies, FarmCrowdy Nigeria, which is an agri-tech startup that connects thousands of African farmers to farming experts and farm sponsors. FarmCrowdy is currently undergoing an acceleration program in Atlanta with Techstars. The international business world is also taking notice of the African opportunities. In the last 1 year, senior partners from 3 of the leading accelerator programs, Y Combinator, 500 Startups, and Techstars, have visited Nigeria to explore, understand, and invest in the ecosystem. During the same period, the founder and CEO of Facebook, the CEO of Google, the CEO of Microsoft, all visited Nigeria. In July, the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma, visited Kenya and Rwanda and launched a $10 million African Youth Entrepreneurs Fund. The selection criteria for investing in Africa is very similar to what obtains in the rest of the world. Generally, you want to invest in a great team of funders who can execute, who are solving real problems, who are addressing a large addressable market with a unique, timely technology solution. We also want to see evidence of a product's market fit, showing some traction along the key metrics of revenue, number of users, etc. However, I must point out there are important differences between investing in this part of the world and investing in Africa. I'd like to point out 2. The first one is the poor state of infrastructures, which can be very constraining. Successful startups must have a business model that can navigate the constraints very efficiently. The constraints are most evident in terms of internet broadband, in terms of electricity, and in terms of logistics in particular. The second major difference is that entrepreneurship in Africa is focused mainly on softwares and applications to solve existing problems and constraints, especially in e-commerce, payments, and lending. African startups are unable so far to innovate on the next big things. The required frontier technologies for the next big things are beyond the reach of the African funders. Simply put, African funders are innovating in bits and bytes, not in atoms and molecules. I think the only significant exception to this rule has been M-Copper, which has basically invested in solar being powered with pay-as-you-go technology, mobile technology. Africa is home to over 1.2 billion people, over 60% of whom are younger than 25 years. They are very energetic, they're highly creative, and very talented. They yearn for their entrepreneurship qualities to be harnessed by African governments and Africa's international partners. I'm very optimistic that this conference will discuss all the key issues relating to entrepreneurship in Africa and will make recommendations to German/European investors and development partners on the best way to effectively engage with Africa and African businesses. Thank you so much for your attention.